the term education has been used almost synonymously to refer to the classroom, with its rows-ordered and exquisitely arranged desks, mounted by an array of assorted textbooks and school supplies, center staged by a teacher who directs or corrects. Even though this is the most popular form of education, it is not the only way. In this week's feature story, we exit the classroom and enter into the four walls where education first begins, the home. This current season, many parents were called to teach their children, but is this a viable option for families? In today's feature, we visit two families that made the choice to homeschool. Hello, with this week's feature story, I am Tessa Habet. Our feature story is brought to you by Pink Boutique. Get ready for summer 2021 with Pink Boutique, where you can get a variety of items from toys and children's clothes to graduation dresses, shoes, blouses, handbags, swimsuits, and jewelry for the grown and sophisticated. Whether you're going to the Keys for a relaxing day on the beach or having dinner at a fancy restaurant, Pink Boutique has got you covered. Pink Boutique is located at 2.5 miles on the Philip Golson Highway. You can keep up with promotions and sales on their Facebook or Instagram pages at Pink Boutique Belize or call at 223-1552.
Do you want to do a good deed? Teach the young. Do you want to perform a holy act? Teach the young. Do you want to do a holy thing? Teach the young. Truly, now and for the future, among holy things, this is the holiest.
There are many questions to be answered, much benefits to consider and detriments to weigh. After all, it is a tremendous shift from the traditional norms. All of these were concerns for these families.
I think our decision to homeschooling happened solely during my conversion. I began, more of a relationship with Christ. I prayed more, and so when it came to certain decision makings, I would bring it up to the Lord, and I got several signs in which I was being told to homeschool the children. That it was the decision I think that my family needed. With that, I prayed more heavily on it. Then through talking with other people, like my sister, which reinforced it more. And just several things that just kept popping up that homeschooling was what I should be doing for my children.
When we had our first child and he was getting to be about the age to start going to school, I think he was 4. So we started praying about where to send him to school.
I believe it was kind of a long thought process, because first of all, homeschooling was alien to me. I believe maybe I've heard it before, but not really processed the idea.
There was a gentleman from Human Life International, which is an international pro-life, pro-family organization. He was speaking about this homeschool that's a Catholic homeschool, Seton Home Study School, that's based in Virginia, in their same town. And he was telling us that their town, that it's just really Catholic and all the families are really strong and there's hardly any divorces, and the children are all like, they're not they don't stray, they're not really they're really solidly well-rounded Catholics. And so I actually started looking into homeschooling. I was looking up Seton and homeschooling in general and different Catholic home study schools, and just reading about them I felt like it was something that I really wanted for my family. And like reading their testimonies, it brought tears to my eyes. It really touched me. So I said to Jason that I'd really like to try this and like let's see how this works out.
Homeschooling comes with a considerable amount of benefits that are exclusive to being in a home where the parents are the teachers.
Well, the benefit that I see in homeschooling my children is that they're really receiving a fully well-rounded Catholic homeschool program. We chose fully Catholic because we are Catholic and my faith is very important. It's very important to both me and my husband. So the fruits that I see from my children being homeschooled are seen like in different ways. Like for example, my 5-year-old son, he drew a picture the other day of like the Mount on Calvary, and he drew through crucifixes. And then all of a sudden he just spoke to me and he said, God is in us. And so he wrote that on the picture 3 times, God is in us, God is in us. So for me to see my 5-year-old son realize things like that and to really say it with great love and in his voice is very rewarding for me, because I see the fruits that are slowly being planted in their hearts, and that is the utmost reward that I see out of my children. Also, my 8-year-old, she will tell me certain things that, she's not afraid of certain things because she has Mary in her heart. So I see very much what the homeschooling is doing. I see, because we begin with prayer, I see how the prayer is helping them form and helping them develop a trusting relationship with Christ and with our Blessed Mother. And that is very beautiful for me.
The benefits of homeschooling for us is, number one, that our family is together most of the day, so that helps us to grow closer to one another. Parents with the children and the children with each other, like they fight, but they're also each other's best friends, and so they'll always be there for each other. The older ones help the younger ones with their schoolwork when I can't do it because maybe I'm helping one child and the other child needs help. And even the younger ones sometimes help the older ones if I'm busy, or like if I'm giving a spelling test or something, the younger one might come and take the book and start giving the words to the older one. But mostly what's most important is that we're forming them we're forming their souls, we're forming them for heaven. And our Catholic faith is very important to us, and we impart that to them throughout the day. It's not just in religion class, but every single class that they have, it incorporates the faith. I think that their faith formation and therefore their spiritual growth is what's been most important, and the bonding of our family as a unit.
I believe I'm here mostly for moral support and discipline. Of course I do work, and most of the time I'm not here, but when I'm here, I try to help as much as I can, especially with the discipline part. As you can see, we have very active children, and so whenever I'm here, I try to do as much as I can, especially if Rachel needs help. If one or two of them has a test or an exam coming up and they need to be taken up, I do that part. And also on Fridays, when Rachel goes on a day off, at least half of the day I'm the one who takes over. One of the main benefits of homeschooling is knowing that your children are in a safe environment all the time. Of course, naturally, as parents, we want to protect our children, and they are getting the best education. We're passing on the faith, which is very, very important. As you can see with their homeschooling program, a math book, a science book, all the covers are the saints, so that's a very important aspect of our Catholic homeschooling.
One of the benefits with the one-on-one tutoring is that, we master the lesson right then and there, and, they're able to go on and do, the required exercises that are needed. And once I see that they have understood that, and then that they're finished with that lesson, we move on to the next one the next day.
Perhaps the greatest benefit of homeschooling is the transmission of the parent's faith to the child. A transmission that works in favor of the parent as much as it does with the child, as the parent's faith is reinforced and the child is being formed in the truth of Catholic teaching and safeguarded from the lack thereof.
I came from a family with 6 children, and they brought us up in a very strong Catholic home. They would wake us up early every morning to pray together as a family, and made sure that we went to Mass every Sunday, and the holy days of obligation. We would read the Bible readings together as a family every morning, and they sent us to Catholic schools, so that was my background, and that's what I thought that I would do for my children. Meeting Jason and getting married to him was instrumental in my becoming an even better Christian. I realized that there were things that I was lacking in my own education, and I find that by doing our homeschool, the way that we're doing it, it's more of a lifestyle that's Catholic and very strongly so, and that there aren't outside influences that are going to negatively affect my children, at least not at a young age. We're training them now so that when they're older, hopefully they will already know the way to distinguish between what is truth and what is false.
I think for me it's more of the opposite. It's more of the lack of, because as much as I grew up Catholic, my parents are Catholic. Unfortunately, they never really instilled in us the Catholic faith. My parents were good parents. They were very good providers, and they were loving and caring, but there was just one thing that they were lacking, which is passing on the Catholic faith, a strong Catholic faith. When I met my future wife, and we started going to Divine Mercy, and I believe that played a big part, because the pastor back then was Father James Blunt, and he was a very, very spiritual, religious pastor, and we became friends. So I believe that was a turning point, and so then I realized the things that I was lacking growing up. We were well provided for, but there was this thing that was missing, and when I realized that, I figured that this is what I want my children to have.
Admittedly, there are challenges that come from being in an environment where there might be limited socialization and more concerns relating to the question of whether a child can be better disciplined from someone who is not a family member.
I want to say that being in a family is socialization, and that, they're learning to get along with people who are like in their face every day. You're learning what things push people's buttons or annoy people, and what you should and shouldn't do. And really being in like a brick and mortar school is like a false socialization, because there's no other situation where you're going to be placed in a room with everybody that's your own age. Like when you go to work, that's not going to happen. You have to know how to get along with people of all ages. And even some schools that they might separate boys and girls, which unless you enter the religious life, that's not something that will really happen out in the real world, like when they get a job. So you're learning with different ages and different sexes, and that helps you to socialize. So your first school of socialization really is in the home, in the family.
Nothing comes easy. Homeschooling is not always going to be a breeze. It's definitely challenging at times because you are with your kids all day, every day. But what I do is I just ask the Lord for the graces to keep on doing what I'm doing, the graces for homeschooling. And with that, that's where I seek my comfort and my strength. Balancing the academics with the formation of their character. Luckily, the homeschool program that we use has everything developed for you. The lesson plans, the curriculum, everything is already set for you. So you just teach the material to the child. Everything is written down. You're pretty much guided by the school. So the books, it will tell you what lesson to do for what particular day. They encourage, for you to never move on to another lesson until the child masters that concept. So what we do every day is we will follow the lesson plan. We do everything daily. Once we're completed with that, then we have like the rest of the time to do a lot of other things that I think children are not really, given time to do throughout the day. I don't think there's really no need for a child to sit behind the desk for 45 minutes. We pretty much accomplish a subject maybe within 20-25 minutes, especially if it's easily understood. What helped me a lot was that I was teaching at the Montessori school before, so I was already around children constantly, different ages. So when I decided to homeschool during the pandemic, fortunately for me, I had already began homeschooling a year before COVID started. So when everybody else was forced to homeschool their children, it was an easy transition for us. We had already dealt with transitioning from private school into homeschooling. So when COVID hit, all we had to deal with was COVID. We didn't have, that extra burden of, the children transitioning to homeschooling. So it was pretty easy for us in that aspect. I just love being around my children. I just love kids in general. And for me, the foremost is the sacrifice that I need to make for them. So I think that helps in finding the joy in teaching them and learning along with them, because I'm willing to sacrifice my time, for their growth, for their spiritual growth, for their, for the formation of their character and all of that.
Parents are the primary educators of their children. So, and that's every parent. And we've just chosen to take that on in a bigger way, that we're not getting any assistance with the education by sending them out to a school. But you are your children's primary educator, whether you send them to school or you homeschool them. And by homeschooling, you're saying, I'm taking on this full responsibility that I want my children to learn my morals and my values and spend most of the day with me, and not to spend most of their day outside with where they're in a classroom where the teacher might be responsible for 30 children, and maybe she doesn't have time for each child. She has a little bit of time for each child, but mostly she's speaking to all the children and hoping that they're all understanding. But when you have your child in your home, I mean, you know your child, no one knows your children better than you, especially if you're spending the day with them, all your days with them. So if you see that something isn't working with this child, then you know how to what you can try to help this child understand the concept better, or what are their gifts and what are their weaknesses, and how can you work with them. Like maybe you need to look for a different book or a different program or a different way to teach them. As parents, we are the best ones. We are their first teacher. I mean, from when you're the one who taught them to talk, you taught them to walk and how to eat, and that education is just being carried on in the home.
As the world continues to change, we are invited to examine our struggles and challenges, seeing them as opportunities for God to speak to us, and by listening to Him, undertake the right course of action. During this pandemic, many parents inadvertently homeschooled, perhaps not fully embracing this magnificent opportunity. As we wait, the future remains uncertain, but in its midst, we hope to find wisdom of the patron saint of school children, St. John Bosco, who once instructed, "Study to become very rich, but rich in virtue, because the greatest of all treasures is the holy fear of God." We pray for the Ocampo and Chicas family and all the families whose greatest intention is to see their child receive a very wholesome and well-rounded education, that they may see the fruits of their effort. With thanks for the participation of these families, this has been our feature story. Thanks for watching.
For this and more feature stories, you can follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or view on Guadalupe Media Channel 96 on CCV or Channel 64 on CBC. You can also tune in on the radio in your car, home, or office at 101.9 FM, and please be sure to download the Guadalupe Media radio app from Google Play or the App Store. Our Blessed Mother, lead us to Jesus.